Hi, welcome to Up and About with Peekskill United, a new show with political commentary, news, everything Peekskill. Back in the election of November 2017, Peekskill United was a slogan used for a campaign. But it's more than just a slogan. It was a group with a mission. Our mission statement, as we said then, and it stays the same now, Peekskill United is a fusion of political ideas and parties with one common mission, a better future for Peekskill. We are a bipartisan cohesion of unique backgrounds, experiences, beliefs, and cultures, together with a pledge to create positive and meaningful progress for Peekskill. But that was a slogan for a political campaign. But the issues that face us in Peekskill, the things that are important to us concerning our quality of life, our parks, just how we conduct ourselves in Peekskill never goes away once the political signs have gone down. So we've developed an innovative show with what we think is an innovative format. First of all, we're going to go out on the street and interview people on the street to find out what they think about what's impacting their lives. We're going to have roundtable discussions in our studio. We're going to interview people who are the newsmakers in Peekskill. So let's introduce our team that's going to put together Up and About with Peekskill United. I'm Bob Sullivan. I live up in the Woods 3 in Westchester. I've been living there for 30 years with my wife, Kathy. I'm president of its homeowners association. And also I'm a practicing attorney. I've been a practicing attorney for 36 years with a practice in Manhattan. And I'm a Navy veteran, having served in the Navy during the Vietnam War. And let me introduce the rest of our team.
Hi, I'm Joe Torres. I grew up here I've been here most of my life, I'd say since I was a young kid. I was a council member, a previous council member, and I also have a small business here for 30 years. So I got to know Peekskill pretty well as a young man, and I have a lot of friends that I know here. And it's been a privilege to grow up in Peekskill, and hopefully we can bring good things to you, all about Peekskill, all positive things. Louis, would you like to talk about yourself? Sure.
Hello, I'm Louis Segarra. I'm a business owner in Peekskill for the last 17 years. Our main component is diversity and community inclusion. I've lived in Peekskill for the last 25 years, along with my wife, my 2 children, and now my 3-year-old granddaughter. Bruce?
Hey there, I'm Bruce Bellom, and I've lived in Peekskill for the past 30 years. Quite recently, within the last year, I retired as a police officer from the Westchester County Police, so I'm going to remove my hat. I've now taken up working with these guys from Peekskill United, and hopefully we're going to be doing a good job speaking to you on the street about Peekskill itself and everything that goes along with it. So I'm the guy on the street.
So let's go to our first topic. As we discussed, we want to bring to your attention certain issues that impact the city, impact you as taxpayers. One of the issues came up recently at a city council meeting back on February 20th, and that topic was development of Lower South Street and the Louisa Street area. For those of you that have lived in Peekskill for some time, you may recall that there was an outfit called the Carta recycling plant down in Lower South Street. That involved years, basically years of litigation. And what happened is ultimately the city purchased the property for about $6 million under the Foster administration. Some litigation was involved, and ultimately the city acquired not only that property, the Carter property, but some other parcels of property for about $3.5 million. So that area down there has about $9.5 to $10 million worth of city money. What came up before the city council was a presentation by Jim Pinto, the director of development, and he brought to the council's attention the fact that the city now has acquired certain tax credits from the state, which are assignable to developers of that property, where they can take a tax credit against their income over a period of years for the cost of cleaning up the property, which has been polluted. So we'd like to have you look at what the City Council talked about and how they addressed the issue in their meeting.
Off of Louisa and South Street. We are in the process of putting together an RFP. Just to inform the council, we've had several developers who continue to express interest in the project, and they select to continue, and those are housing developers with a mixed-use possibility. We also would like to put in the RFP the ability to propose a mixed use or an alternate use for the property. The property is not currently zoned for housing. However, the brownfields tax credits were developed around what they call a restricted residential housing level, which is the highest level of cleanup. And that becomes a tax credit for the private sector developer to utilize to pay for the cleanup costs.
Going forward, so as we're trying to attract developers, what are we using to attract them?
The brownfields credits are basically, from what I understand, a 7-year tax credit. So the funding that they spend, which is approximately $3 million is the estimate, that would become a 7-year tax credit for corporations. So that's huge. That makes this property a lot more valuable to a developer to get those credits for recurring years on their corporate spreadsheet, so to speak. And then the fact that the property does have a good overlook when you get towards the top of it to the Hudson. You can see the Hudson almost from the ground level.
But do we have that developed? Do we have that to show somebody?
Like when they come in, do we say, in this area, this is what we're looking for, this is what we're looking for, or do we just say, you can come in and we'll change all the zoning for you?
This is why we're here tonight, to see what kind of direction you all want to go in. Current zoning would permit everything except residential.
Correct.
So it's a question if you want to restrict it to zoning or if you want to allow other uses as well. We don't have a schematic. We don't have anything on paper that we can show anybody right now.
Is that we need to develop what we want there, and to be showing developers this is what we want. So what I'm asking you is, how are we doing that? What are we telling developers that we want to see there? How are we trying to attract developers? What are we doing to get people?
That's why we're here tonight. We need the vision of the council. You have to tell us what you want, and then we will reduce it to paper.
That's great.
Right now,
I was under the assumption that this was being done quite a while ago.
we don't have the vision of the council. Do we have a united council in terms of what you want to do?
There's a very united council.
What I think we should
The new
do
council, you'll have 4 new members.
What I think we should do going forward, since we're in negotiation with developers, maybe we should look at the areas that we have that developers are looking at to potentially do stuff. Maybe just let us know those areas as they are in negotiation with you, so we can at least put our input in.
Well, I think also just to follow up on something you said before, Richard, this is a new council, and so some of us are just kind of getting into this conversation. To be quite honest with you, before making a decision on what direction I would support us moving in, I'd like a bit more information regarding the things that Councilwoman McKenzie
But what Jim didn't explain is that he's been spending the better part of the last 2 or 3 years finalizing this brownfields program, which was the last one that was issued by the state at the time that it was approved. So that has huge value to developers. There's many remediation issues here. He's amended the plan any number of times. It's very complicated. So now, honestly, it's ready now. It wasn't ready last year. You know, this is the first conversation that we've actually had.
One of the things I can provide is we did a recreational study about 1.5 years ago, and I can provide that to everybody on the board, and you can see the potential of having a recreational facility as part of the development.
Okay, we've just seen what the City Council had to say about the project and future development down on that site. Let's hear what people on the street had to say. Bruce?
So right after the council meeting, went down to that area where that property is, just to take a look, to see what I would think would be fitting for that area. But I happened to stop a couple of people who are on the street and got their opinion. I'd just like to go to the clip that we took.
I'm on Lower South Street, just south of Louisa Street, and I'm looking at a tract of land that's currently owned by the city of Peekskill. This land has been the subject of many discussions within the city council. They're trying to determine what would be best suitable for this land, and if you remember back maybe a few years ago, this land was slated to become a Target department store, but it never came to fruition. Currently, the City Council is looking for bids from developers in order to be able to develop this land in the best interest of Peekskill and, of course, of the citizens of Peekskill.
Something needs to be here. I'd like it to be a business or some kind of mixed use. I've heard a lot of things through the years, but nothing. You know, it's just a shame because, you know, I think that we've lost a lot of tax opportunity.
Currently, the bids are out for the property, and it would take a lot of development here to clear out this property and make it suitable. But as of yet, nothing has been decided.
are we really progressing? Are we doing something? I've been here for almost 30 years, and all I've been doing is driving through a vacant space.
And this is prime land in Peekskill, overlooking the Hudson, just a half a mile from us, and a baseball field.
A Target, an IKEA, a Costco. What's your opinion on that?
I think it wouldn't be a bad idea because the access you already have to the road is here. It's such a straightforward shot for any business that would open here, you know, and you already have the access easily for the truck traffic.
I'm speaking for Peekskill United. I'm Bruce Bellom.
As you can see, there are a lot of opinions as to what type of business should go on into that area. The area is well developed as far as industry is concerned, and it's also accessible from Route 9 and Louisa Street. But what I'd really like to know is what is the history behind that property? And you guys have an opinion?
Well, I mean, I was on the council when we discussed that property. It was before, they bought it before we got on the council. I thought it was a bad purchase because when they bought it, they never checked to have anybody say, is there oil? Well, there was oil in the property from a junkyard being there and some other stuff. So it was a contaminated piece of property, and they paid $6 million without anybody even looking into that. So I think that was a big mistake. And the problem you have now is that, you know, you have this property you can't get rid of. We had the brownfields that came in. That's a tax credit. So for you to clean up the property, you'll get $3 million in tax credit, which is good. But the problem is, you know, somebody has to clean it up. And then they have a sewer line that goes through there that's 30 feet deep. That has to be, you know, if anybody's going to build anything major there, it has to be replaced. So it's a big project. There's a lot of things going on down there. And the other place was Carter. Carter was down there with the throwing garbage and stuff like that. Not that he did anything wrong, but all that needs to be cleaned up. All that needs to be, you know, you have to attract someone that's going to want to buy it. And I don't think anybody's going to give you $9 million or so for that property. You're probably going to end up giving it away because the amount of cleanup that has to be done there.
There was a study done there, I think in 2009.
That's correct.
Can you just give us a little bit more on that?
Well, one of the things that the council talked about in its meeting is, you know, they suggested, gee, we got to get some ideas on what to do with the property. But there was actually a focus group done. It was a study done involving citizens. They had focus groups, they had workshops, they had seminars, not only about that particular property, but the rest of the development along the waterfront and some of the industrial areas. But so there's a lot of input and a lot of brain power has already gone into this topic. And so the need to revisit the wheel, it really seems to me it might be something where you might have to just dust off that study, have a look at it, and take into consideration some of the things they looked at. Now, one of the things, as you remember from the meeting that the city manager and Jim Pinto talked about, was they've gotten some feelers that the property could be developed as mixed use, commercial and residential. But the focus groups back then in 2009 rejected the idea of residential. They were more looking into light industrial, and actually, believe it or not, 9 years ago, even before the AIM initiative that's coming out in our city, they talked about it being an adjunct or an economic driver in connection with the art and media business that was then really in its infancy in Peekskill. So there's been a lot of brain power put into this project, and ultimately the brain power from that project, as best I can recall, that led to modification of the zoning, which was passed while you were on the council.
Yeah, we're on the council.
And that zoning opened up some of the use of the property. You can use it for office space, light industrial, entertainment complexes. None of it is zoned for residential, however. So
we did. Yeah,
I think one of the big issues that came out of that was that they were going to put a big box store in there as a target. And I wonder what happened to that way back.
Well, I can tell you that got done. I believe it was pretty much not a done deal, but on its way. And I think at the time the mayor that was in place there felt that it wasn't, she didn't want a big box store there or whatever. And that's why they bought the property, because they didn't want Target buying it and then trying to build on it through zoning or whatever. But you know, after the years we were on the council, we had a few companies come in and try to look into purchasing it. They were going to look into there was Wegmans. There was a guy that was going to bring in Wegmans. You know,
Wegmans.
Yeah, he was looking into bringing that in and some other stores and stuff, which we were very excited when I first got on the council. And for some reason, I guess he felt the numbers weren't there to bring the type of people to that store. I mean, that was 4 years ago, so I think it's a little different now. I think now, it's a perfect place because it's right off the highway. Yeah. So you can get like a really good store there that'll bring people here.
I also think that we have to create sub-hubs of entertainment. We can't take Main Street and just put everything in one place. We have to take the different areas and different districts in Peekskill and create entertainment, restaurants, so different people. We've got over 500 new residents coming in from all the residential work that's going on. They can all get into Main Street. We have parking issues already. Yeah. So we have to create sub-hubs of entertainment. They can go to different areas of the city, be able to find parking, have different type of entertainment, and really, as well as everybody else who's coming to our city to go to the bars, go to the restaurants, the entertainment, and really, create different areas of the entertainment hub. But we can't all focus on one area.
I'll tell you, the area is pretty good down there because when I was down there, I could see you could drive down there. There's also a bus route down there. Yeah. Okay, and it's an easy route off of Route 9, back onto Route 9, and into the city itself.
Sure, into the city itself.
One of the things that's interesting when they did the zoning change, you talk about the big box store. The original zoning for that property didn't include big box, and so it was changed when Joe was on the council, and it was about the end of 2015. The zoning, it's a M2B light industrial as opposed to an M2A. The M2B is opened up to include entertainment, restaurants, and the big box stores. So the vision that kind of came out of all the studies and the thinking at that time was to open it up to that idea. I do think, though, that one thing we have to be careful about is not to necessarily compete with downtown. We need to build something different on the commercial end, different stores, but not what's going to run. And I think you're right, Louis, not to aggregate everything in downtown, but you certainly don't want to compete with it and draw business away from downtown. Right now, the idea of putting in, boutique stores and so forth in that particular area, we got a lot of vacancies right now in the downtown area. We have vacancies in the beach shopping
There's no foot traffic down there.
Yeah, correct. So what you're going to set up, and I'll just give an example, and it's really a thought. I don't know if you go up the Sawmill Parkway in Hastings, there was a little portion of property, you know it well.
At Lawrence Street.
Yeah, and Lawrence, exactly. That was part of the Axo Nobel plant. Tore that all down, and they parked in there a recreation facility, a gym is there, they put in a Panera, they put in, kind of these chain stores that don't necessarily compete with our restaurants in downtown, but they have a different attraction. And, that was put right next to their DPW garage on the site of a chemical plant. So when you're coming up with a use for that property down there, sort of the mix. And the one thing we have to remember, I think, is we have a theme in our city. We are, a number of years ago, you were all here when they came up with these artist lots. What a cockeyed idea that was. Well, guess what? It took off. It made downtown, made Peekskill exactly what it is. So you have a theme. So when you're developing that property, at least a portion of it, is there anything that we can do in connection with the art and particularly this AIM initiative that's coming to town that can help foster and grow that? That was discussed at the city council meeting, and Jim Pinto said, well, the AIM process is not far enough along. What I'd love to hear from is the people that are the Chamber of Commerce and the people that are driving that initiative to see what they think. Is that a space where you can have multimedia studios or facilities that can help that engine drive a little bit?
Yeah. With that being said, who in the council really can take leadership on that? Because it's going to need leadership from either our mayor or the city council to really drive that.
Well, the other thing is, one of the big things now that I think the chamber is involved with, they're trying to make it a media, like a movie studio come up here. And, they tried it before. I think Ben Green has been pushing it for a while. And, we wanted to get a movie studio there and make it, where people would come up here, they work and live up here and stuff like that. So I thought it was a great idea. It would bring a lot of, a lot of job opportunities.
We're definitely going to have the housing for it.
Yeah.
We just need...
Talking to the people on the street, when they heard, I guess back a couple of years ago, there was going to be a Target there, it was like, wow, we're going to get a Target in this area, and it was big, the chatter around town. And still, if you mention it, it's
people
still
talk about it. Yeah.
Target.
I hear it all the time. It would have been a great place. I think it would have been a great store. Would have brought a lot of jobs to the city. I think it would have brought a lot of traffic to the city.
I like that idea, but I don't think it's forward enough for us. I think in 10 years, even big box is going to have its own struggles. I think we have to go 10, 15 years ahead of time and say, these are the the businesses that are really going to be flowing during that time, that are going to create the employment opportunities we need, and going to bring the people and the tax base that we're going to need. Big box is great. We have a lot of it, but I think it's coming to, you see what's going on with Toys R Us.
Yeah, sure.
You know, those are kind of a big box, a little different, but the Amazons, the Walmarts, you know, the places that have the warehousing and they ship things from one place, that's going to drive the other businesses out, you know.
Well, it's a weird, it's kind of a unique location because you have, you know, be it SF down there, you have a lot of industry down there, and it's not really a foot traffic area, so it has to be something that either like a media center would be, kind of, you know, like a studio, movie studio where they do movies. Something like that would really work down there, I think, and, you know, like I said, bring people.
These are all good thoughts, and, you know, in that one property there's so many things that can be done. It's just a matter of getting that right piece or that right business for that area. Yeah. And there are so many, just like we discussed right now.
And someone that wants to invest in.
Yeah, one thing we have to be clear about is to make sure it doesn't stink, doesn't make noise, doesn't make smoke. Yeah. Because we have people living right across the road.
That was an issue back when Carter was there. People complain about the noise and all the dust coming from there. So it has to be something that it's not really industry as far as outside work and stuff like that.
And although zoned for it, a hotel isn't going to fit there, because when you put up a 7, 8, 10-story hotel, the people on the west side there all of a sudden lose their view of the Hudson Valley.
Well, you can't see the Hudson from the other side.
Yeah, correct. So you know, it's a complicated process. It's a very complicated issue. And like I said, I think the mayor and the council can't really defer to the city manager. They have to develop a vision that's going to keep that property, like you said, Lewis, 15, 20 years down the road. You know, residential right now, that's the flavor of the month. And I just remind, I lived through this, projects like Chapel Hill, Society Hill, and the Woods. When they first came out, they failed. It took them 8 to 10 years to come down the line.
So did Forest View. Caravanian, you know, finally took over a couple of different bankruptcies of people trying to build this. So
I can tell you from being on the council that we constantly were looking, you know, for ideas or reaching out to people that were interested, and then hopefully you would think they would come through with something. But you know, a lot of people would look into it and not really, you know, finish it through kind of stuff.
Well, this is something that the council addressed themselves.
That's right. Yeah.
As far as what they want to see
Correct.
Going to a lot of these places, it wasn't pushed out to the city manager, but it was basically.
No, you know, sometimes someone that was interested would reach out to the city manager, or most of the time they would reach out to the mayor and say, "This is what I'd like to do," you know, and he would bring it to us or bring it to the city manager and discuss it, and then see what we thought about it, or was it worth bringing someone in to talk about it, or it was something that we didn't want down there, you know, and if we didn't want it, we wouldn't take up the interview. But you know, we did a couple we thought were good, and it just, you know, hasn't really worked out since while I was there. I don't know about now, but it's a tricky piece of property because, you know, it needs work. It needs a lot of cleaning up and stuff like that, and it needs like the sewer line done, stuff like that. So someone has to invest a lot of money into it and really stay there for a long time, knowing that's going to be there for a long time.
So you've heard what we've had to say. What do you have to say? Send us a note on our Facebook page, and we'll respond to it. Let's hear what you have to say about it.
And you can find us on YouTube and also Facebook. So, you know, feel free to, you know, comment or tell us what you think that would work down there. And, you know, even though we like to have anything we want down there, it's not really up to us. It's up to a builder. So hopefully we got to attract someone that's going to want to go down there.
And give us your ideas, because that's how we get the developers interested, knowing what you want. This is for the city of Peekskill, for the residents of Peekskill. It's not about the developer, it's about us.
And remember, you can reach us at Peekskill United on your website.
Okay, recently we had our chief, Eric Johansen, police chief, retired, and you know, he's been around for a long time, and hopefully he's doing well. But I know Bruce did some interviews on the street. Maybe Bruce, you can take it away.
Recently had the distinct honor to interview Chief Johansen at his retirement celebration in the city of Peekskill. It was quite an honor to me to speak to him because he's achieved such a high rank and he's done so much for the city of Peekskill. And I'd just like to give you a little bit of an insight into Chief Johansen as he was interviewed on the night of his retirement.
I'm a little shocked and dismayed about him leaving, but I know he's moving on to something bigger and better. I mean, I wish him all the best in life. Him and Kathy are a really good team together. Kathy was also a sergeant in the, actually a lieutenant. Just
growing up in Peekskill and you know, going to kindergarten at Woodside School in 1975 and leaving the police department, what'll be tomorrow in 2018, having risen to the rank of chief, just makes me very proud and humble. But I think the greatest achievement has been modernizing the police department, continuing the trend of crime statistics going down, and getting a K-9 unit, and just having the ability and the privilege of leading probably the finest group of men and women any police department has ever seen. And I'm just so proud to have been fortunate enough to have been able to do that.
I knew Eric Johansen, Chief Johansen, since he was a high school student because I had him in my class. He was a lot of fun to have in class. We did a lot of good things in Peekskill High School. And so I've known him a very long time. And it's been a wonderful experience to see him from high school student now leaving as chief, but all the years, the 20+ years he was on the force.
As you can plainly see, Chief Johansen is a dynamic individual, and he's moving on to another career. But while he was in the city of Peekskill, he innovated so many programs that helped the city itself, helped bring along community policing. He also brought a dog into the community, and one of the big achievements was that he incorporated a drone into his crime-fighting program. And I think, Joe, you could say a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was on the council. I was a police liaison to the police department, and I worked with Eric, quite a few times on quite a few things. He was always a pleasure to work with. I've known Eric since he was a young kid. We kind of grew up together, and our families know each other well. And one thing I always say, he gave 100% to the police department and the community. You could always reach out to him, and he was always there, no matter who you were. He would listen to you and try to work with you. So he was. It's going to be a big loss for PD, I think, but he'll be well missed, that's for sure.
One of the things I liked about Chief Johansen is he exuberated who he was to his officers. I mean, yes. The officers are on the street, you go by, they'll say, good evening, how are you? Never bothered you. If you need a ride from the train station because you miss your cabs, they will help you out. And that's what I liked about the whole staff and Chief Johansen. And one of the reasons why our company donated a drone to the police department, because we felt they were doing everything they needed to make Peekskill safe and give the residents the respect they deserve. And what better way to say thank you, to give them another piece of equipment that will help make their job easy. It's especially used for the Alzheimer's patients who will go out and get lost, and I remember where they're at. But they can go from one side of the city to the other side, because this piece of equipment went 60 miles an hour. Yeah. And it wouldn't crash into anything because it was specially designed that way. And it actually made the police unit better. He was a great guy to talk to. Anywhere you saw him, very pleasant. You can talk to him about anything.
Yeah, I didn't know Chief Johansen that well as you guys did. I met him a few times when I was trying out for this part-time city job over the summer. It didn't work out, but I ran into him a few occasions on that one. But the one thing I can say about his management and his control of the police department, as I mentioned at the introduction, I was the president of Woods 344 units up there. Whenever we had conditions, break into cars, people illegally dumping stuff in our dumpsters, we reached out to the police department and they were on it. We had patrols, we had visibility, and we had people taking care of that condition. So I can speak as a citizen who really didn't know him that well, but had interface with his department. Things were running really well. And I have no reason to believe that it's not going to change under the new chief.
Well, hopefully it doesn't change. I don't think it will. I mean, I know that the police department, as far as when Eric hired a lot of these new guys, he makes sure there was no hotheads. Everybody was well balanced. Everybody was respectful. And you see that a lot. These police officers are very courteous when you talk to them. They're not nasty to you. They go out of their way if they can to help you. And that's something I think that came from him, and it went on down to all the new employees and the new police department guys.
He helped bring a lot of cohesion to the city itself in the community policing aspect of it. This city is very diverse, as we know.
Yes.
And he handled each and every community as one, and that's very important to a city, especially especially when you have a lot of issues going on, and people are able to get together and have a meeting of the minds. And Chief Johansen was inspirational in that respect.
Very professional.
He was particularly very proud of his forensic unit. I think that's something also he brought over to Peekskill, which they didn't have.
Yes.
Very proud of that. And we want to say thank you to the chief.
And thank you for all the service that you have given the city for all the years. I think you did a great job, and you know, hopefully we wish you success in your new job. I believe that you're going to. I don't know what it quite is, but I hope you'll enjoy it a lot better than you do here.
And the new chief that's coming on.
And the new chief, yeah.
So
hopefully,
a lot of success.
I wish him success also.
So our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the incessant nor'easters we've had over the past several weeks. We had that one a couple weekends ago where primarily a wind event took down a lot of trees, a lot of people lost power, and a few days later we had a major snow event, about 23 inches here in Peekskill. After the first event, after the wind event, the mayor issued a statement, a storm preparedness statement, in which he gave some tips to citizens on how to prepare for the snow event that was upcoming. But one of the things he said I think is very striking. He said, referring to the wind event, "We've already learned a lot from this weekend and certainly understand the need for future preparation. We will get there. For now, please share this information," meaning the tips about storm preparedness, "with family and friends in the area. And I encourage everyone to be safe and avoid traveling as much as possible. Tomorrow afternoon, now is the date of the snow event." So I think it's very telling that the mayor at least conceded that storm preparation was a little bit lacking for these events. I wonder if anybody has any comments on their reaction to the storm preparedness and what took place during the nor'easters.
Yeah, I can tell you from being on council when we had our first big snowstorm, we had everybody, the mayor called everybody in, all the emergency responders, and had them stand there and say, "Listen, we're here, we know that there's a storm coming, and we're going to make sure that everybody's safe. We're going to put out a number, we're going to open up all our places to make sure that if anybody needs anything, they can call us and we'll be there for you." And I think, when people vote you in as a council or mayor, you have to show that you're ahead of everything, that you're going to come out ahead of the storm and say, no matter what happens, we're going to be here for you, and that makes people feel comfortable. Put out a number for older people that they can reach out to you and say, "Hey, I'm scared of the storm coming, and I want to make sure that I have a place if I lose power," something like that. You can call someone, and that's the only thing I feel that they didn't do, and that should have been done. But in the future, hopefully that changes.
I can understand we have new council members, may not understand procedures, but we do have senior people there.
Well,
and you've had this thing in place when Catalina was there. You guys knew what had to be done. Why weren't the senior people there just taking charge of the situation? Our mayor's been there for already a term. We have other council members there. I don't understand why it would take them, so much time to put this into place. There's already a precedent for it.
Well, it's up to I believe it's up to the mayor to call the people together and let everybody know that, he's the mayor and he's here to make sure everybody's okay. And that he's calling all his people together to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do, and more than what they're supposed to do, to make people feel comfortable at home, knowing that they'll be safe. So, that's what the mayor does. That's what he's supposed to do.
How does the city deal with those people who are infirmed? When the lights go out, it changes the whole dynamics and creates more of a danger for the elderly who may be on dialysis, maybe another piece of machinery. It starts to get cold in their homes. They don't have television, and now they definitely don't have a phone, since most people have cell phones. How does the city deal with this, and what is in place that keeps them safe?
Well, it's people that are on dialysis and stuff like that. If they lose power, the ambulance corps will pick them up and then take them to a hospital they need to be. And, there's other things we can do. We also have places that, with cots that they can stay in, down at the city below the library. So, if people want heat or whatever, we have a generator. The library has a generator so it has heat and everything else, just like the police department.
Is that temporary? Can they stay there overnight? Or
they can stay there overnight if, it's up to, if it's unsafe where they are and they don't have a place to go. And that would be the smart thing to do, let them stay overnight.
Does the city have welfare checks in place where if they go to a person's house that is elderly, that that may be infirm, that needs medical attention, and do welfare checks on them?
Well, yeah, we can, if we know who they are, the police will probably send someone out most of the time, or, OEM will send someone out. OEM also helps a lot. The fire department does a great job. Everybody has their own ways of doing things, but it's a great community, and you have great people that want to help, and you want to make sure you put them into play when a storm like this comes up and use them to the fullest capacity you can.
I think one of the things that came out in some of the debriefs that I saw in the council meetings was that, like for example, the warming centers, they didn't have them open because they said, well, nobody asked us to, we really didn't need them. But I think sometimes when you're dealing with people who are elderly particularly, you have a phone number. If you need help, call the police department. And elderly people don't like to call the police department or call anybody. They don't want to impose on anybody. I had this personally with my parents. They lived in Buffalo. They had 7 feet of snow, and they didn't call anybody, and they needed help. So they're a little recalcitrant to reach out. So I think you have to be proactive in making available resources. The warming center is open. Come on down. And it shouldn't be an issue of cost. And one of the other things I noticed about all the storms is the proliferation of different Facebook pages. There's a Facebook page the mayor uses. I'm not sure whether it's an official page or not. It's Andre Rainey for All. He broadcasts information on that page. Well, most people wouldn't know to look for Andre Rainey for All for their information. They're going to look at the city of Peekskill. Sure. They're going to look at the Office of Emergency Management. They're going to look at a standard place for information. And you had, I think, one situation where the mayor's website contradicted OEM with respect to reimbursement by Con Ed for their loss of food that was lost in the storm, although now Con Ed has agreed to pay for that.
But Bob, that's really, really good. But what happens if you don't have access to your computer, your iPad, your telephone because the battery's gone out? Is there anything in writing that the city sends out to people like Con Edison did, like Indian Point did, to tell you in case of emergency what to do, how to help yourself, who to call, or who to get in touch with?
I think the ideal thing to do, though, is like other cities do in other towns and villages, that you announce it before the storm comes, so people do have power, and say this is looks like it's going to be a big storm. If we lose power and you need something, put it out there, put a message out there on your website that you can reach out to the police department or certain numbers, that people will come and help you in any way they can if you need a ride to the warming center or whatever. So it's like anything else. So, you have to be proactive, and you have to say, well, there's a big storm coming. Hopefully nothing comes of it, and everybody still has the information they need if they need to reach out to someone, or they could call and say to the PD, knowing that they'll be safe.
It's very scary.
Yeah, it's scary when that storm caught a lot of people by surprise. There's no doubt about it. It was, the wind was super strong. It looked like a war zone the next day when you drove around, trees knocked down, everything else.
And I think our residents who are most at risk are seniors. And everybody's, at the stage where they're savvy with computers. Yeah. So our seniors really are probably the least savvy. We should have something on the government channel informing them what's going on. Maybe even the phone calls coming to let you know if they need assistance, one number to call. Because, like I said, not everybody's on the computers. And if you lose your power, you're not going to have access to it. We are in a new day and age where technology is first and foremost. But there's many, especially the most high-risk are seniors, are not going to get to that level. They're not going to go into starting something new that they're not going to understand properly. Yeah. We can't forget about that.
It's interesting what Bruce said in writing. Indian Point puts out something every year, and I read it, and I think even the seniors will read it. And if it's got a standardized protocol for what they should be doing, in addition to reinforcement over the web and over the Facebook. But again, the standardized source of information is something I think it's very important. You even had Facebook postings from certain council members announcing whether or not the schools were open or not open. This is not a political forum. It's the city of Peekskill addressing an emergency situation. Right. It should be something that people can find on Facebook, like OEM, or whoever, the police department. There should be a central place. Fire department. All that information should be screened, centralized, and should be vetted, certainly by the city manager who has control of all those operations. There's some discussion about hiring a public information officer. Well, okay, that's fine, but you got people on staff that are capable of using Facebook. I know one for sure. that they just recently hired is familiar with social media. If they want to use a public information officer, that's fine, as long as that's somebody that's going to collate and vet information, so there's one voice speaking for the emergency services.
I think the public information officer is a good idea, because all the information funnels to that officer, and that can be disseminated out, where you're getting pieces here and there from different people, and sometimes that information isn't as accurate or factual as it could be. But the PIO, as it's known, is the key person who would give the correct information as they know it.
But not an additional hire.
Well, it costs money, like everything else.
So give us your feedback on it. Let us know what you think, your opinion how the city did, how Con Ed did, what ideas you have that will make it an easier transition so we can all be safe and informed when the next storm comes. Thank you.
And our final segment, Everything Peekskill. Of course, this is March. March 17th is St. Patrick's Day, and March is Irish Heritage Month. And as an Irish American, it is more than just festivals. It brings us back to our heritage. We all like to look back at where we came from and where we're going. So it's very meaningful for Irish Americans. And I'd like to get everybody else's thoughts on St. Patrick's Day and the truly diverse makeup of our city.
I'll tell you, it was a great day. It was cold, it was really cold, but to see the marching bands, to see the kids, to see all the different cultures come together in the city on St. Patrick's Day was awesome. I particularly liked the marching bands, the bagpipes, and the guys with the rifles. Those rifles were just ringing out there.
Yes, they were.
It was very much alive, the city.
I think Peekskill celebrates diversity very well. We celebrate our cultures, we celebrate our foods, everything about our various diversities and cultures. Peekskill does very well. We all get along, and what I like about it the most is sitting down talking to someone and then just tell us their stories. Bob, you have great stories about your heritage, your family as well, that we're going to share in a couple. But that's the great thing about Peekskill. It's diversity at its best. I love it. Joe?
And also, you have the Elks Club that help out. They give out the free hot dogs. You go down there, everybody gets together there. Everybody goes to the Quiet Man. You see everybody happy walking around together. It's a fun day. You see all the people that come down. It was a little cold this time around, so I don't believe we had as many people, but it was good to see a lot of people out there.
How was the corned beef and cabbage?
It was good, very good.
Well, I know the Rotary had its first march this year. This is the first year they marched on the parade. So congratulations to them, the first of many more.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day, it's parades, it's festivities, and one thing that folks should look at, the city's website, when you talk about diversity, the Human Relations Commission has done a couple of good tapes. They have like 3 tapes, one on Black History Month, one on Women's History Month, and one on Irish Heritage Month, where they target specific people in the city of Peekskill. Very interesting to look at. Check it out on the city's website.
A lot of great statistics. It really is.
And this weekend I was actually up in in Albany for the Puerto Rican Hispanic Conference, where they have the Hispanic organizations and businesses interact with the legislators to talk about the points of Hispanic businesses, talked about the rehabilitation of Puerto Rico and the surrounding islands as well, and all the good work that actually the governor is doing, along with the many businesses in Peekskill and not-for-profit organizations out there doing great work. And they also celebrated International Women's Day. So hats off to all the women around the world.
Yes.
I acknowledge and we thank them for their contributions throughout the world. I want to thank as well our wives, our daughters, and the many women of Peekskill.
Without them, where would we be?
Absolutely. So it's a great month. A lot of great things happen. Our show kicked off, which is also a great celebration in March. And we'd like to hear from you. Let us know what you'd like to talk about. We'll talk about it. We'll bring our man on the street, Bruce, interview you. Don't be shy. Let us know what you think. Hit us up on Facebook, on our YouTube page. And, we'll have a round discussion here. No question is they say? No question is a dumb question?
It's a dumb question. Correct.
So,
and sometimes the questions are fun questions.
Absolutely. And I do have to say one thing. No Irish American would wear a hat like that.
We're here for everybody, though. We're here to listen to all your needs and things that you feel need to be addressed in the city of Peekskill, positive or negative. We're here for you, and that's what we're about, right, guys?
Absolutely. And Bob, as we close it out, can you let us know a little bit about your Irish heritage?
Irish heritage. Well, my great-grandfather actually came on a boat when he was 3 years old. Right about the time of the potato famine, one of the great human disasters, well documented. But again, when you think of your heritage, you think back to that. The people that came here at 3 years old with his parents who were 21 and 22. There's a lot to that, and we all became part of this great melting pot in America. About 40 million people trace back their heritage to Ireland. That's a big population. That's a big portion of our population. And certainly they've made their contributions, as do all the immigrants who come over and contribute to our society. So America's a great place for all of us.
I'd like to hear from you people on the topic of the new firehouse. How is it going to affect you in the city?
I'd like to hear about public housing. What do you think we can do to make it better?
I would like to hear about the zombie homes that we have out there. And there's a whole ton of them that are really in bad shape that need to be addressed, and let us know. And we can go out and film those zombie houses and make sure that we get them addressed from the city of Peekskill. Thank you.
And I'd like to hear about code enforcement. What do you think? Let us know. Good night from Up and About Peekskill. We'll see you next time.